Knowing every person on the planet, we should be just as close to the knowledge and information that we need to make smart manufacturing work for us. We're that close to the experts and the expertise needed to drive real operational and real business value as 21st century business competitors. So we're going to use this platform just to take the next 20 minutes and introduce you to a domain expert and talk about, in his view, what smart manufacturing is, what it isn't, who's finding value, where are we falling short, and anything else that's important to him, and more broadly, what's more important to the ecosystem overall. So before I introduce our guest and we get started, I just want to talk a little bit about the platform that we're using here today and a little bit from a logistical perspective. So we are using Zoom as the platform for this morning. So if you're not familiar with Zoom, we're asking everybody to keep their phone lines muted so that we don't get background noise. There are options for the thumbnails as well. So you can probably see me on video and my guest will be on video as well. There are options for me. They're in the upper right-hand quadrant corner where you can make them bigger, make them smaller, or make them disappear based on your preferences. As I mentioned, we're going to take 20 minutes in a moderated discussion between me and our guests. If you have questions, since we're moving in such a quick fashion, if you have questions, I ask you to email them to me directly. My email is on the screen there, mike.yost@cesmi.org. I will answer your questions by email. The other thing to note is that this session is being recorded, and we're going to post the recording onto LinkedIn and encourage everybody to continue the discussion online. So with that, just a bit about the theme and the speaker that we have with us here today. So from a broad umbrella perspective, we're asking people, what does smart manufacturing look like to you? It gives us the opportunity to talk with people from all the different dimensions of manufacturing, the ecosystem overall, because manufacturing touches so much of our entire country. So we have people in different size companies, different industries. We have manufacturers, solution providers, equipment builders, technology providers. We have academic leaders. We have government leaders. And so this gives us the opportunity to ask each of those folks from their perspective, what does smart manufacturing look like to you? So with that, I have asked John Dyck, who is the CEO of CESMII, Smart Manufacturing Institute, to be my first guest here today, and ask John, what does smart manufacturing look like from a national perspective? John, as the CEO of CESMII, has the charter to really answer that question at a national level. How do we leverage smart manufacturing and make sure that it drives competitiveness for U.S. manufacturers? So, John, I would ask you to introduce yourself here quickly, and we'll get started with our discussion.
That sounds great, Mike. Thank you for hosting us here today. Thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. Appreciate everybody taking time out of their day today, or if you're doing this online, taking the time to investigate and engage with CESMII here in this way. It's a privilege for me to be here. It's a privilege for me to lead this organization, and even beyond that, to engage with this ecosystem at large. It's an enormous opportunity and challenge before us to take the way manufacturing is done today and be a part of driving this forward, be a part of the transformation that I think we all understand is necessary for manufacturers to look towards the future of manufacturing, to look to tomorrow and say, tomorrow is going to be a better day than today, to engage in the digital transformation strategies necessary to move towards Industry 4.0 under the umbrella of initiatives like smart manufacturing.
So then, John, to get the ball started, why don't you talk about is smart manufacturing at a national level, from your perspective, strictly a technology discussion, or how do you view the role of the Institute and what needs to happen to make smart manufacturing a reality?
Yeah, that's an important question, Mike, because I think most consortia, even public-private partnerships, tend to, I guess, fall on that spectrum at either one end or the other. And I think a lot of folks focus on sort of their sweet spot in terms of where they come from. Our role here at CESMII, and I think what we passionately believe here, is the idea that while technology is important, education, cultural transformation is equally important. And if you come at this from the other side, your sort of perspective is more about the education workforce development side. We want to pull everyone towards a common perspective that says we've all tried over the last couple of decades to do this in different ways. We believe it's absolutely essential for both parts of this spectrum to sort of come together in a compelling way and allow technology to engage the culture, allow education and cultural transformation to be done in the context of technology and the transformation that comes through that. So this is really about both. It's about bringing those worlds together in a cohesive way so that we're doing more than just technology on one hand, we're doing more than just talking and educating and talking about culture on the other hand.
Yeah, and I know you have a slide, so I'm gonna pull a slide up here that sort of positions the institute overall and the mission that you have, and maybe let people take a look at it quickly while I ask a question based on what you just said, and maybe you can speak to this as you have, different pillars that are here. And you mentioned been working toward this the past few decades. Oftentimes there's a debate of is this just a continuation of this is old news, we've been doing this for a long time, it's the next generation of continuous improvement, or is this all whiz bang new stuff, the cloud and big data and AI, machine learning, this is all brand new stuff with no connection to the past. Maybe your view quickly on that, of sort of the old and the new and them coming together, and then how they manifest themselves in your strategy for the Institute.
Yeah, I think one of the truisms, looking at what we've done here in this space collectively over the past couple of decades, is that we've been transforming from what was largely a hardware-centric world on the manufacturing plant floor to more and more aggressively adopting software platforms, software technology, software products, and building software from a custom perspective to address the various needs on the plant floor. So I would say, on one hand, we're really, really good at deploying software solutions to solve specific niche issues or specific problems on the plant floor. What's new today is important, and I think this is more than just the sort of gradual evolution of what we've done, continuing looking forward to the future. This is about a dramatic shift in the way we're building technologies, about the way we're bringing information technologies to the plant floor. It's about leveraging and harnessing the massive investment being made in every aspect of this ecosystem, from those that are building software and the innovation that's taking place in the software space, to the folks building infrastructure and data centers, networking technologies. These are all poised to, if we can bring these capabilities and the sort of cultural transformation that we've talked about briefly to bear on how these manifest themselves on the plant floor in a more cohesive and strategic way, secure and sustainable, scalable way, this will have a radical impact on manufacturing. I think what's different today too is that for the first time in my career, manufacturers are focused on creating value from information. This was not true 5 years ago, and it certainly wasn't true 25 years ago. So this is a great time in our history to talk about transformation on a scale that we haven't seen in our careers.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that, having lived in many of the same spaces you have over the last 30 years, from that perspective. And I think as we talk about what smart manufacturing looks like from a national perspective, it is about some dramatic changes to the way we think, right? It's changes to, I love the vision of a digital enterprise, right? And as a manufacturing company, I can see into my supply chain, I can see into my customer base, they can see into mine, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is, in a lot of plants, culturally, departments don't want to talk to each other, right? Or don't have the information that they can rely on to comfortably share information. And so there's some challenges there, I think, from a culture, as you mentioned. I think from a corporate process perspective, the way companies buy equipment versus buying software, it's newer for manufacturers to be trying to buy software and have software maintenance contracts in mind, or subscription licensing or things like that. And I think also you get to a point where we're going to have to change the thinking of the incentives that we have for people, because if the metrics and the way you measure people, the way you promote people, the way you compensate people is tied toward very process-centric historical norms, and what you're trying to drive is transformation, like you're talking about. I think you're going to hit a point where we have to figure out how to compensate people on those deliverables and those actions that you want them to have, or want them to perform. And I think it comes back to your point that the value of the information is being recognized broadly across that enterprise, and I think it's represented in the pillars that you have here on the slides.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that briefly, Mike, because I think you're exactly right. If we look at in a typical manufacturing setting, what we've done to solve the problems that we've identified and the software systems we've deployed to solve them, both in the plants and across the enterprise, the level of complexity is enormous. In fact, from a cybersecurity standpoint, represents a risk in the enterprise that the plant floor systems that we're talking about here represent a risk to the enterprise unlike anything else that IT is responsible for and needs to address. And so if we look at that complexity that we've created and we look at the opportunities to leverage these new digital transformation technologies and drive a smart manufacturing strategy through our enterprise, that feels like more complexity. That feels like more things to manage, more issues that we need to address going forward. And so unless we do some things differently tomorrow than we are today, we're going to be faced with the same complexity or more, and that's not sustainable. So from our perspective, our strategy here at CESMII is all about bringing the smart people in this ecosystem to the table. When I say smart people, it's the manufacturers, it's the integrators, it's the vendors, it's the machine builders, it's academia, it's the folks that build stuff and leverage the information from those things to drive information and value for their organization. It's that ecosystem that we need here at the table, thinking about things differently and learning new things and working in a much more collaborative way going forward than we have in the past. And that's why the notion of democratization is so important. The idea of democratization is not a political idea. It's an idea of how we engage from a business model perspective. We can make fundamental choices about technology and innovation in this space. On one hand, we can do important things and make them available for an expensive fee to a few folks, or we can take those same things and sort of create mass market appeal for them, making them accessible to everyone for a much lower price. And that's what we think of when we talk about democratization of smart manufacturing. Taking the ideas and key technologies and enabling systems and innovations and making them available to the masses. We think about that from a technology perspective, from an education workforce development perspective, and also the idea of innovating and collaborating, and how we here at CESMII are working hard to create an environment where this set of smart people can come together in a safe space, in a vendor-neutral environment, and drive forward, develop strategies that are meaningful, that are sustainable, that are secure, and that allow us to take this idea of crowd sharing, crowdsourcing, and bring IP and knowledge together under this umbrella of 6 degrees of smart manufacturing, right? We should know where the resources are that we need. We should know where the smart people are that we can call on. And so that's a big, big part of the work here. It's about the people, as we've always talked, the people, the process, and the technology.
Right. So if I could sort of touch on a couple of points that you made here, and these 20 minutes are flying by. So maybe think about specifically, is there a specific takeaway you want everybody to have from your session here so far this morning? As we look at the ecosystem that's on the screen right now, like you talked about, focusing on the manufacturers as the focal point, and the productivity and performance and capabilities that are needed, and the impact that has locally, regionally, nationally, from an economic perspective. I think focusing there and driving value there allows all of the other problem solvers, right? Because everybody on this screen listed here and inside manufacturers are all problem solvers, right? That's a skill set or a qualification that everybody has here. And the academic community is researching and solving problems for specific manufacturing environments. But if that's the focal point, the true north, I guess, for us is the productivity, the output, the safety, the security, the access to information is to improve the manufacturing operations and the competitiveness of manufacturers overall. And that gives us all a place where we fit in and we plug in, right? Even as an institute, we know that our charter is to say what barriers are in the way of that. And so we need to knock those barriers down and make those things seamless, to move us all forward together as an industry and as a nation. So you touched on things like scalability and security, and I guess maybe just sort of wrapping up a major takeaway here for folks this morning. Smart manufacturing on a national scale has all of those components, right? And maybe talk about what it feels like as a manufacturer of any size down the road when we reach that point where we can say that the U.S. is filled with smart manufacturing capabilities on all levels.
Yeah, I think that's a foundational idea, right? That as we talk about tomorrow, better look like a more smart, a more capable, a more productive, and enable the manufacturing system here in the U.S. to be more competitive. And so this is truly about bringing this ecosystem together. I think we've created a culture over the last 2.5 decades where each of these parts of the ecosystem are pitting each other against the rest, and are differentiating in ways that aren't necessarily enabling collaboration, right, and in ways that aren't necessarily helpful. So this is from our standpoint, we have to address core issues from a security standpoint, productivity standpoint, from an ecosystem standpoint that bring this ecosystem together. We can't solve one problem without addressing the rest. And so that's a really important part of why we believe CESMII as a public-private partnership is a necessary element to bring this ecosystem together. There isn't another organization in this space that has that mandate, that has the funding to do that, and has I think the domain expertise, the ability to bring the smart people together in this way. And so I think if there's one core idea, it's that if we're going to attack this problem and create a more competitive manufacturing landscape here in the US, it's going to be because we do it in a more collaborative way than we have in the past, in a more holistic way.
Right.
We can't address technology without addressing cybersecurity. We can't talk about creating solutions and only do that for the Fortune 1000. We've got to create solutions that scale down to the machine tool job shop that's got 75 employees that no vendor has or very few vendors have the ability to call on today and support today, and integrators to engage today, because the cost of doing so isn't feasible at scale.
Right. Well, that's a great point. I think engage with us here as we go to wrap up here and let folks get on with their day is twofold. One, down the path of the things you were just talking about, John. So getting involved with the Institute, getting involved with understanding the technologies, getting involved with getting your people educated and contributing to the discussion. Secondly to that, I would say this webcast series, to continue on with this, we ask you again, submit questions that you have, give us topics that you want to cover. If you know people that should have their voice heard, should have the platform for 20 minutes to tell their story, let us know who those are. If it's you, if you want to get up here and tell your view of what smart manufacturing looks like to you, we absolutely want to hear and get that information from you, or get that insight from you, and we will work to keep lining people up. With regard to what's next, 2 weeks from today, same time, same channel, we will have Haresh Malkani, who is the Chief Technology Officer for CESMII. We've asked Haresh to look at it from the perspective of what does smart manufacturing look like from a technology level. So I would ask everybody to join us there. Registration is available on the CESMII website. And with that, we will say farewell and thank you until next time. Take care. Bye-bye.